actually kind of cool because I'm just going to get to know you live on the show.
I love it.
Yeah, totally. So you were a Wall Street dude. You were a trader
Yes.
on Wall Street, and you started a couple businesses, and then kind of moved into the health and wellness space. Give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. So I went to Columbia. I played basketball there. I graduated in 1998. So back in 1998, and you went to a school like Columbia, you did a couple things. You maybe went to medical school if you had an aptitude for science or wanted to help people. If you had grades and interest in law, you went to law school. Or if you just wanted to make money, you probably went to Wall Street. And I had no grades, I had no aptitude for science, and I didn't come from any money. So desperately wanted to make money and get rid of that college debt and have freedom. So I became an equities trader. So no startups back then. This is early internet. So I became an equities trader and was fortunate enough to do really well. My second year, I made a little over $800,000. A lot of money for a kid who's 25. A lot of money, period. Yeah. And it was probably one of the worst years of my life. I was in a relationship that was falling apart. And the biggest month, I made a little over $200,000 and my relationship was ending. And it was just such a sharp contrast where I was so miserable. And so my whole life I'd been searching for money. I saw money as happiness. And here I am, boom, 200 grand. I could pay off all my debt, buy my mom a car, do all these things. And I'm just miserable. So it became very clear to me that money did not buy happiness. And, a couple of years later, 9/11 happened and, changed my perspective on what I wanted out of life and decided that there was more than trading for me. And, eventually left, got involved in a healthcare startup, which didn't work, and then started a mail order cheesecake company in the early days of e-commerce, which learned a lot, great experience, but did not work, and then led to an organic chocolate chip cookie company that was in every Whole Foods in the country. Really great business, but I traveled 150,000 miles domestic in a year, and I'm 6'7".
They don't make planes for guys like you, do they?
They do not make planes for guys like me, especially coach seats. And old basketball injury combined with stress and flying. I had 2 extruded discs in my lower back, pressing on my sciatic nerve, L4, L5, S1. My right leg was like a lightning rod. Excruciating pain. I could not walk. Stressed over money, the whole thing. And, went to a doctor. He said, you need back surgery, non-negotiable, sought a second opinion. He said the same thing. And it was almost like an afterthought. He said, some yoga might help, some therapy, but you still need surgery. And so I started to practice yoga. I started to look at things like sleep, stress, nutrition, and yoga was a big part of it at the time. And I began to heal, just doing 10 to 15 minutes light yoga morning and afternoon, over the course of weeks, started to feel better. Course of months, I was fine. I never got surgery. So I started digging, and I'm looking at things like I remember going to a massage therapist in San Francisco at the time when I lived, and she was saying, telling me about the chakras and how the root chakra on the back is connected with money worries. And I was like, oh my God, like that's me.
I got that.
And I had this awakening where I was like, holy cow, everyone's got health wrong. It's this blend of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and environmental well-being, and no one, and that led to me founding Mindbodygreen. Saw that there was a disconnect in health. Every print magazine was about weight loss and vanity, and I looked great at the time, but my steak and martini diet was, not doing it for me. And I saw, it's this lifestyle. It's Mindbodygreen. It's more nuanced. It's more holistic. It's East meets West. No one's talking about that. And that led me on the path to start the company in 2007 in beta and then fully launched it in 2009. So I've been at this for a while.
So I was actually sent a pre-whatever version of your new book, which is, by the way, the title is just so clever. It's Wellth, but spelled WELLTH. And your subtitle is How I Learned to Build a Life, Not a Resume. And coming from a Wall Street dude who went and chased the money, right?
Yeah.
And you went down that algorithm. I mean, I would say that making 200 grand a month puts you above, the 1%. And so you have tasted fortune and it beat the crap out of you, right?
Yep.
And so you kind of transformed that into a new idea, a new perception of wealth.
Yep.
What's included? What, where you had some externalities, which were your health, your happiness, and
Yep.
your relationships and all sorts of things that weren't on the balance sheet
Yep.
at your 200 grand. Uh,
Yep.
Now what's in there? What is wealth?
To me, it's this blend of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and environmental well-being. And I do think it's one of these things that is unique to you as an individual. And I think it changes as you grow. Uh, and it gets back to this larger idea of what drives me nuts in health and wellness sometimes is there is no one-size-fits-all approach to our lives, to wellness, to happiness. But to me, I think there are some major rules that sort of apply to everyone. This idea of taking care of your body, nutrition is paramount. Health starts with what's on your plate. I believe in eating, a diet that's low on processed foods, low on sugar, mostly vegetables if you can. I believe in the power of relationships. I believe you are a combination of the 5 people you hang out with most. I think that's proved very true in my life. I believe in the power of movement. I believe in the power of nature. And as I've grown, I'm such a city dweller. I live in New York. I love New York. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I found that I yearn for nature every couple of months. Like I yearn for it. I need it. And that's me. And it's this idea of really, building a life, and it comes down to lifestyle and finding what works for you. What are your, what's being demanded of you at work and family and so forth, and finding that magic mix. And I think generally people just want to be given, a magic recipe for that. But I believe in the journey and finding your own path.
So there's this interesting kind of juxtaposition. I don't know if you went far enough to become like independently wealthy to never have to work again before you kind of
Nope,
jumped out
not
of
at all.
Wall Street, right? So then you still need money, right?
Absolutely.
And money is something that we earn, but in our generation, I'm pretty much your same age. It's like you were taught that you hustle for money, and then you get your weekends and your retirement to do what you want for yourself.
Sure.
And obviously that's what kind of broke you and kind of moved you along. Now you're in this realm of doing the right thing and supporting other people's growth in that, which is kind of much
Sure.
more in that kind of conscious capitalist realm.
Yep.
I'd love to kind of tease that out as we go, because one of the things that you kind of pointed out in your book was belief in oneself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're not a health and wellness dude. You're not a doctor per se. You're a Wall Street guy who was unhappy with it. But then you went and found it yourself and you explored that. And so now you run one of the kind of biggest real estate, holdings, if you will, on the internet in the health and wellness space.
Yep.
You believed in yourself, but you went through the journey. Unpack that for me a little.
Yeah, and the journey takes lots of twists and turns and took a long time. I finally left Wall Street. I sort of had one foot out the door, but finally left in 2004. I saved a lot of money, but eventually ran out of it. I moved back home. Here I went backwards, where at age 30, I moved back home with my mother and grandmother. And I had that moment where I'm like, I feel like George Costanza from Seinfeld. Like, what am I, except I'm taller and better looking. Like, what am I doing? All my friends are still on Wall Street. And I had to, tear down the foundation that I had built and build it from scratch. And so it took a long time. Mindbodygreen also started, it was a side project in '07. We didn't launch till '09. I didn't pay myself a salary until 2012. So I worked for 3 years with no salary, very understanding wife, didn't really know we had a business until, late 2012. So we're talking like 8 years, like this was a long journey. And so, I think life in general and finding this path, I talk a lot about, the middle path. And so what I mean by that is I believe in working hard. I believe you have to put your head down, you have to set goals, you have to work your ass off. Like, life is somewhat simple in that way. You have to show up, you have to work hard. Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours, rule. I think there's actually some truth to that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you also have to have the spiritual awareness to take a step back and say, am I doing the right thing? I'm trying to jam down this door over here, but it's just not opening. Maybe it's the door to my left or right. Having that spiritual awareness. And I think within health and wellness, or just in the world in general, you have people who are just hard charging, like, I'm going to break down that door. I'm a type A and I get it done. And that's great. But I don't think that's the full picture. And I don't think you realize your full potential. And on the other hand, you've got people who, very spiritual, connected, and will sit on the couch and just do affirmations or, pray and then go eat a ham sandwich.
Right.
And they're not doing the work. And I think, to realize your full potential, it's finding that balance. And it's a hard path. It's a path that I still work on. I still struggle with. We're still growing. We still got problems. We're not perfect. But it's really finding that. And I think that's the real journey of life. Doing the work and having that spiritual awareness to go deeper and ask the hard questions.
You play basketball.
Yes.
It sounds like you had a couple good coaches along the way.
Yes, and a lot of bad ones too.
Sure. That's how you know. That's how you know the good ones.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the literal translation of kung fu is hard work, and there's something you said there that I just want to unpack a little bit, because you left a posh job. You had this kind of dark night of the soul where you're back with mom and grandma, and you don't know how the hell any of this is going to work. And a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm going to leave my corporate job because I'm miserable, and then I'm going to cross my fingers and maybe get a massage certificate and pray. But the part that was missing in a lot of them that I've talked to, and what you're saying here, is that you also hustled. You did everything it took to become successful in the new land and follow your dreams and kind of find yourself in there. And that's important, right? Like, you put in the work.
Yeah. Absolutely, and we still do. I work harder than ever. I would argue that I work harder than I did on Wall Street, and the job's more stressful. But I balance that with other practices that like meditation and yoga, which I've incorporated in my life. But that's the beauty, and I also think this is the conundrum we have in health and wellness with entrepreneurs. You're so passionate about what you do that your wellness practice starts to fall. Starts to fall. And so I've had moments, for instance, I became super passionate about yoga. Yoga healed my back, and then I started going to classes, and I couldn't get enough of it. I was going to yoga 5, 6, 7 days a week. Just couldn't get enough of it. And then Mindbodygreen started to grow, and then 7 days a week went to 5, and then to 3, and then to 1, and next thing you know, it's like once a month, and I'm like, what the hell happened to my yoga practice?
Totally.
Like all this wellness, I'm making everyone better, but what about me?
My back hurts again.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn it.
And so, I arrived at this place where I'm like, listen, I love what I do. And that's, wellness is a passion point. And this isn't going to change. And I am so passionate about what I do. And I work with my wife also. We're both passionate. We don't have children yet. So together, we just love our world. It's phenomenal. But the wellness practice disappeared. So I said, okay, I need to build a life around this. So how can I incorporate yoga and meditation and my wellness practice into my current life? Because it's not going to change. Right. And then settled on, I'm going to do yoga on the weekends, and I'm going to commit to that for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to start meditating every day, and I commit to that, and now I never miss. And I think that's it. It's finding, once again, it's the pushing and having the awareness, and it's a delicate balance.
It certainly is, and it's so easy to become a martyr. You're now you have this narrative, right? Like, I'm helping all these people, so I'm out there helping all these people, and then one day you come home and you're ragged and you haven't smiled at your wife, and the dogs haven't gone on a proper walk, and all of it.
All this wellness is making me sick.
And that falls out of the wealth that you're talking about too, right? Because you've lost one of the criteria.
Yes, and I think we also live in a world of social media and Instagram where everything is rainbows and unicorns, and life is bumpy, and there are bruises, and there are imperfections, and I think we need to do a better job of sharing that and embracing the journey, because the journey is typically not a straight line from A to B.
No, and you didn't just walk into Mindbodygreen. You have a whole chapter called Explore. where you you went on a walkabout, right? You started looking at what that is. And so help us understand the importance of that exploration in finding one's path and oneself.
Sure. I think the hardest decision that people have to make is making the decision to take that first step. And so when I first left Wall Street and left for this healthcare startup, I intuitively knew this was something I was not passionate about, but I knew I had to take the first step. I knew if I didn't take off those quote unquote golden handcuffs, I could just go on and trade and make enough and be comfortable, but I knew I had to let that go and take the first step. And the first step is often the scariest. And I think when you go on your journey, just taking that first step and just being committed to the journey, where you say to yourself, listen, I'm on the journey, I'm taking the first step. I don't know where the hell it's going to go, but I know I got to go. And I know it's right. And I'm going to see what happens, and I'm going to try to work my ass off. I'm going to try to be spiritually aware and know where to navigate as I go through the journey. But I think it's that first step. It is so rare that you say to yourself, I don't know anyone who really has done this and succeeded, where you say like, okay, I'm going to leave and I'm going to do this and it's going to happen.
Yeah. Babe Ruth style, right? Like I'm just going to call my shot.
Yep. It doesn't work that way.
No.
You have to take the step, you have to do the work, and you have to be open and aware to what comes your way and roll with it.
Yeah, and open to living with grandma and having all your Wall Street buddies look at you and be like, what are you, a moron? What are you doing?
Yeah, and that's tough. And I think, it gets harder as you get older, although I do think it's never too late. And I am really happy where I ended up. And look, I'm still on the journey. We're still have a long way to go. And I think, that's the beauty of life. It never ends.
You have a chapter called Feel in the book. And it's about following your instincts and that gut. And having the kind of wherewithal to do that gut check. And so this is also kind of drawing on that energy, which is what you did and what your experiences were. You actually had a kind of you were close to the 9/11 thing. So let me know.
Yeah, I was a couple blocks away when that happened, and literally, it'd show up every morning, and we'd be watching CNBC, and next thing you know, something was very wrong. The S&P futures, which are an indicator of where the market was going, they were up, and then they took a nosedive, so something was up, and then next thing you know, we're watching on TV, the first tower gets hit, and you could literally, from our window, even though we were like 6 or 7 blocks away, you could see debris floating, and then the second one hit. And then intuitively, I was like, I need to get the hell out of Dodge.
Right now.
So right now, I was on the 15th floor. I'm not taking the elevators. I ran down the stairs. I called my mom from the landline because you couldn't use a cell phone. Cell phones were just done. Everyone was on cell phones. The bandwidth wasn't there. Called my mom and said, this is what's going on. I'm leaving. I'll see you home. So I ran out and just hopped in I went to the Lower East Side. I said, strategically, I'm going to go towards the Lower East Side. It was a crappy area of New York at the time. Nothing's going to happen here.
No one wants to bomb this.
I'm going to stay off the Brooklyn Bridge. I went to the Williamsburg Bridge and I hopped in a cab and I just gave the cab driver a couple $100. I said, just go to Long Island. I'm getting off the island. I went to my mother's house and heard it over the radio. Intuitively, I just knew this is bad. I need to get out of here. And other people are sort of walking around, hanging out. Let's walk to the trades. And the towers. I was home in Long Island before the towers fell. That's how fast I was. But a very clear example of this idea of listening to your gut and also the power of fear when it's very real. And in life, whenever I've gone against my gut, it's been disastrous, whether it's been relationships or hiring or, the gut is really powerful. Your intuition is really powerful. Practices like yoga, meditation, that's why they're in my wellness routine. They make my level of intuition so much stronger. To be able to tap into that, to me, it's phenomenal, and I think that's the beauty of those practices. And I think it's just so important to do whatever you can to be more connected spiritually, to be more connected to your intuition. Just from a productivity standpoint, you want to be better. You want these tools.
Yeah. And if you want to heal, you need those tools. I had a teacher who used to always say, you got to feel to heal, right? And that's actually another chapter in your book. You have a chapter called Heal, and then you actually, Wall Street dude, went, kind of full bore into Eastern medicine, functional medicine, and all these types of things, going after, things that were, I wouldn't say fringe, but fringe-ish at the time, and are now kind of way more mainstream and accepted. And obviously, we know how important that work is. Did you use your body as a lab? Like, how did you get into this stuff? Was it blind faith or was it experimentation?
A little bit of, I think it started with my back, where, I have this moment and I have a massage therapist talking to me about chakras and the root chakra and worries about money. And then it's like, whoa, this becomes real. And I think with a lot of things in life, especially when they tend to be a little more new agey, a little bit out there, you sort of, put it over to the side and then you see it within yourself and then it becomes real. So then you go down this rabbit hole. And so in this process, it was exploration, and I think that could also be dangerous too. But I've tried everything, Reiki, colon hydrotherapy, shiatsu, which I still do, energy healing, you name it. And I think it's really powerful, and it's powerful when you have those moments, where I'm getting shiatsu last night, and he's lighting up my toe, and I'm like, what's going on there? And he'll be like, oh, well, that's kidney, that's the Energizer Bunny, that's why you're burnt out right now. And I'm like, absolutely, one of those things when you feel it, it becomes very real. And to me, I think the future of health is the blend. I think it's Eastern and Western. Western is not perfect, but Western saves lives. Western is incredible. Like some of the science that's happening right now is just amazing. Eastern, heck, I believe in it. I think the mind and body are one. I think it's one of these things. Eastern and Western need to work together. This idea of functional medicine, Mark Hyman, our friend, this idea, you have to treat the patient, not just the symptoms. Everything is connected. The mind and body are one. I think we all talk about this idea that stress kills. Like, why do you think it kills? Like, I think what's exciting now is science is catching up to support Eastern. I think that's when the magic happens, when you have science saying this is why meditation works, this is why yoga works, this is why sugar's killing you. These things that intuitively know, a lot of Eastern, more holistic practices, when science supports them, I think that's really exciting. I think on the other hand, it can be dangerous when you just solely look at Eastern and don't follow the Western. It become a rabbit hole where all of a sudden, everything is a sign.
Yeah.
Everything is, this over here and that over here, and it becomes almost crippling. And I've seen people experience that where, yes, I've been to an astrologer and that's fun and it's cool. And sometimes there are interesting things, but like, you shouldn't be relying on this person for, advice on whether, I should buy a house or my mortgage or life decisions. It's
People
a rabbit
do.
hole. It is, but it's a blend, and I think it's a blend. I think there's some people who are amazingly gifted, and do have gifts in terms of spiritual guidance, but at the same time, there's science, and once again, it's both.
Yeah.
It's this middle path.
Yeah, there's a lot to be kind of said there, because the old traditions, I'm a kung fu guy, right? And so it's pretty evidence-based. Because if my technique didn't work, I got punched in the face. I will remember that, right?
Everyone, what's that great? There's a great Mike Tyson quote: "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face."
That's it. This is exactly how I was going to roll out this fight. Didn't work out. And so evidence-based, I think, applies to all of this, right? And so even, we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about all these things that have kind of become household terms. Mindfulness is something the Buddha talked about a long time ago.
Sure.
But then there's a lot of people that kind of ran off with it and got weird. And there's a lot of weird out there, right? And it's not anchored in reality. And people take things and make them what they're not. And I think that anchoring things in being evidence-based, whether it's even for yourself, it's like, well, did that actually make me feel better? Or do I just feel like I belong to this thing and I want to my new friends make me feel good, right? And so there's some research I was looking at with prayer and specifically on being grateful. And you talked about this, and this is kind of a big part of your gestalt, is your ability to feel grateful And it sounds kind of woo-woo, but we know that people who are grateful, who give thanks, actually do better in life, are actually happier in life. So I'd love for you to unpack that.
Yeah, gratitude was something that was imprinted in me by my mother at a young age. I wake up every morning and I literally before I meditate, before I get out of bed, I repeat the words "thank you" over and over. Thank you for my health, thank you for my family, thank you for my wife. Like I just mentally I repeat this over and over. And I think that got amplified when I was 19. My father dropped out of a heart attack, sudden, healthy guy, although he had some heart issues, but like boom, someone's here, then they're gone. One of the major lessons there and growing points was this idea of, you don't want to take anything for granted in life. You don't want to have to lose something to feel that gratitude. Life is precious, and to me, the only way you can be happy is to have a gratitude practice. Once again, type A, like I'm setting that goal, I want to accomplish this and that, and when I get to this point, I'm going to be happier. When I, have that bigger salary or home or car or relationship, whatever it is we're pursuing, and I believe in pursuing excellence, I believe in goals, I believe in financial success, you got to be happy on the way there, because you're going to find you're going to get there. And you'll feel a little happy, a little happier, but it's not going to bring you the fulfillment you're looking for, and it'll just be this endless pursuit of nothingness. You don't want to go through life always climbing the ladder and getting to the top and realizing, this is the wrong ladder, or this ladder didn't, bring me what I thought it would bring me, which is happiness. And so it's this balance. How can I be happy and grateful on a daily basis, but at the same time pursue goals, pursue excellence, pursue whatever you're pursuing. And it's hard. It's hard. We all struggle with it. We all have moments in the day. We all want to, strangle our cab driver every once in a while, or miss the subway, or, it's hard. I think it's something we all struggle with. But just having any sort of daily practice about being thankful, whatever that looks like for you, I think, is a huge reminder of who we are and what we're here for, and the larger purpose of ourselves and the world and the universe and everything. So,
you know what? One of the things that you are feeling in this, and then you and I think have a kind of a similar path in this, is that we're in health and wellness, and yet there's tremendous capital requirements for some of the stuff that we do. I mean, you've got a lot of staff, you got a huge infrastructure. I'm sure I'm sure it costs a couple bucks to keep your lights on, and we make movies. It's an expensive endeavor trying to do what we do, and so you're in the health and wellness space. Trying to feel grateful, trying to stay healthy, trying to get your yoga in, and the question of the middle path, right? How does a conscious entrepreneur live that life and remind themselves to be happy every day in the pursuit of their thing? Like, you're building this huge Eiffel Tower and it's going to take 80 years to build. And so, if you're happy when it's all finished, your entire life has been done, your life is gone waiting for this tower to get done. So how do we do a middle path as business owners, as people who are doing what we do?
Listen, I think it's really hard. I think every conscious entrepreneur struggles with this. I think it's a big problem. I think we're all doing our best. And I think, the people who are finding that balance for them are finding some sort of practice, some ritual that they won't lose when things get nuts. When you're working 18 hours, when, capital's tight, or hiring sucks, or, to let someone go, or the growth isn't there, or whatever it may be. I think, the people that get through it, the people that don't lose themselves, find some ritual, some practice. For me, that's been meditation. Like I alluded, my yoga practice has dwindled to just a weekend practice, for 15 or 20 minutes. I meditate daily. I do the 20 minutes in the morning and an afternoon. I don't always get 2 times a day, but I never miss a day. Repeat a mantra over and over, Vedic, TM, whatever you want to call it. And that works for me. And I go in there and I do that. I feel better. I feel energized. I feel the fog lifts. When I'm stressed out of my mind, I can still sleep. And so to me, I found that practice. I think other people have different forms of that, but I think if you don't have some sort of practice, whether you're in health and wellness or not, you're an entrepreneur, you are going to burn out so fast, and just it will take a toll on you mentally, physically, spiritually, across the board. And I think within health and wellness, I think a lot of people struggle with that. I really do.
Yeah, which is such a ironic twist, right? It's like,
Yeah.
here you are, guy who left Wall Street because it was breaking you, now having to face the same type of energy.
It's so funny. It's like when I was a trader, I would hold big positions overnight, and like you wake up, you're holding stock in the morning. You could wake up, that's up or it's down. Things, and never bothered me. It was amazing. It actually learned the big lesson I learned from being a trader is I learned how to take good calculated risks and be very comfortable with ambiguity. But I work harder now.
Yeah.
I'm arguably more stressed, although I have better tools to manage it than I was back then. Wall Street, you were in and out, and you left. When you were out, you were out. Here, I'm never out. This is something I do 24 hours a day.
It's your baby.
Yeah, and passion. And I think that's the secret to life too. When I was on my journey, there was this great quote from Lawrence Pearsall Jacks, essentially saying, the master of in the art of living, you can never tell when he's at work at play. They're one. And so I remember reading that and saying, like, I want that. I don't know what that looks like, but like when I was done in the day on Wall Street, like I was done, I checked out, and I desperately wanted, like, what is that? Like, I want to be one of those people who's so passionate about what they're doing, you can't stop.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I don't want to be checking out and thinking about happy hour or where I'm going to go. I crave that. And I think a lot of people want that.
It feels a lot more like work when you are not in it, mind, body, and soul, right? Like you are there, you're putting in your hours, you're making your money, that's how you make your bread, and then you have your other life, which somehow is supposed to balance it. And I think most people live there though, right? Like, I mean,
Absolutely.
the majority of people, go clock in and clock out and then go do their hobby. So how does someone like that factor these things in and look maybe towards a brighter future of doing something that's a passion project, but not constantly looking to the future for fulfillment and happiness down the line, but having it through the journey?
Yeah, a lot of people fall into that boat, and I think there is a path for them. And I think it's this idea of building your life around that. I'll use my father-in-law, for example. Guy's 70 years old. He owns coin-operated car washes in LA. He served 2 tours in Vietnam, helicopter pilot, like great guy, great provider. He's really sharp. He's not really passionate about car washes.
Right.
But having this business, what he is passionate about is climbing, great food and red wine. And working out. So like this, he's created a life where he still enjoys those things. He on his free time, he climbs, he eats great Italian food, collects red wine, does CrossFit. So he's really happy and fulfilled. And so, yes, I believe when you marry work and, passion and work, it's something really powerful. But I think, for a lot of people, that's just not in the cards, and that's okay. And you can have a really great, fulfilling life by asking yourself those questions, like, what am I passionate about? Am I passionate about restaurants or working out or traveling? Build that around your work life. And I think it's very doable. And I think it's just taking that inventory. What are the things I want to be passionate about? And how can I plant them around my life? And you can do that.
I love that. So in business, one of the big problems we have with capitalism is this word called externalities, which is, I have my little coal company and we do great over here and we're super profitable and our stock is doing well, but the externalities are the air, the water, human suffering, and those aren't really factored in. And what I really like about what you've done with your book on Wellth is you've brought the kind of lifestyle externalities, the human pain and suffering, the spiritual balance and all this back into the definition of wealth or prosperity in a way that is supportive of a whole human being. And I think that that's a very, very important conversation, and you're really throwing a haymaker with this. And I think it's it's timely, and it's also very well done. So it's a great book. I highly recommend reading it. You've obviously lived this stuff, and you're still living it. Look, you're not some dude who's like, hey, look at me levitate, right? You're like, hey, my life is stressful, but this is what I've done to balance it, which makes you real.
Yep. As I say, with the exception of being 6'7", I am just like everyone else.
I just can't fit in a damn airplane.
Just can't. I just use those miles to upgrade to business class every time I get.
Yeah, totally. And even then, it still kind of sucks. Yeah.
It's like a normal seat for me.
Yeah.
If you're 5'10" or 5'9" in a regular seat, that's like me in business.
I was on a Southwest flight with next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar once. And I was just like, you poor man. Wow. I had no idea how hard it is being you living in a world built for people my size or smaller,
He's
right?
got me by 7 inches.
Yeah, he's a big dude, right?
7'2",
Yeah, so I feel for you. Well, how can people find the book? I'm assuming everywhere books are sold, but just give us a website and all that.
Yeah. Everywhere books are sold, Wellth, Wellth, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You could go to wealth.mindbodygreen.com as well. It's everywhere, and I hope people pick it up. I think in a lot of ways, this is the book I wish I had when I began my journey. I think no matter where you're at in life, you're going to walk away with a valuable takeaway that hopefully leaves you inspired to live your best life.
I love it. This is the book I wish I had when I started my journey. Those are the books worth writing, and those are the books worth reading. So yeah, I highly recommend the book. He's awesome. He's doing great work out in the world, and he's honest, and he's basically, this is who he is, right? And that's what you want. I think there's a lot of false gurus out there talking a lot of shit, and not all of it is actually anchored in reality, right? He's got stress. He's got a real life, and he's living it, and he's bringing balance, and that's part of the message is, we can't escape life's stressors unless we give it all up. And giving it all up isn't worth it, because then we wouldn't have Mindbodygreen, right? We wouldn't have these resources that you've provided for the world. So I'm glad you didn't run off for the mountains.
Yeah, me too. Amen to that.
Amen. Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Jason kind of laid it out there, and he's like, hey, I'm stressed out running a health and wellness empire. And so for me, I'm like, well, I'm really busy and oftentimes stressed out running a health and wellness empire. I don't want that, right? And so we're in a very interesting dialogue around that. Jason is going to be featured in our next movie, Prosperity, and he's an awesome guy. He's just like, let's do this, let's figure this out. We have to keep our balance in this. So it's going to be a very interesting ongoing thread that you're going to see going through the Urban Monk, well.org, Mindbodygreen, and all the places that this information is going to go. And I encourage you to take it to heart and also start living your life in a way where you don't get out ahead of yourself. So it's an ongoing thing, right? It's an ongoing thing. Life is always trying to pull us out of balance, and it's on us to come back and be home here. So I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, I got Dr. Damon Bayless, who is incredible at speaking about boundaries. It's been something that's really come up a lot in questions in the Urban Monk community. And I said, listen, I got to pull in an expert to talk about this because most people are just terrible with boundaries. And next week, we're going to talk about it. We're going to dissect it. It's, again, another powerful conversation. If you enjoyed this one, if you enjoy all the things that you're listening to, share this thing. Get it out there. People aren't having real talk out there, and it's all superficial. I'm trying to keep it real, and I'm trying to raise the bar. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week.